Hi guys, Trans Pavillons podcast show, episode number 4. We're sitting in the beautiful Pavillons Nature Reserve on Cramp Kicker. Harold, it's a bit frisky still this morning, but we braving it in our t-shirts here on our chairs. And yeah, we're gonna chat to you about today's episode. Harold's gonna run through the profile a bit more in depth. And I'm going to talk about these crates, these boxes. It's probably one of the most asked questions that we get via email, social media, and so on. So we're going to dive into that. But first, Harold, tell us about this hill that we're on.
Well, I think let's take a step back first and go to the route profile itself, which is probably very well known, probably one of the most downloaded aspects from the website. People want to know what the route is about, what the profile is about, how much climbing you're going to do, and as we've said, it's close to 3,000 meters of climbing for the distance. And as I always say, it's probably one of the most deceptive route profiles out there. It's like going into a restaurant, looking at the menu, and the menu looks good, but what arrives on your plate is a totally different story. So yeah, the route profile itself, it looks like a downhill race for the first 100 kilometers, so we just passed the 100-kilometer mark here. And this little climb here was never named before. For a few years ago, some of the riders decided to name it, and they named it Cramp Kicker. And it comes back to how did you pace yourself for the first 100 kilometers. And if you overdid it, the intensity was too high, the heart rate was too high in the first 100 kilometers, this is the little climb that's going to tell you that, and as the name says, that you've overcooked it, yeah. I mean, we're looking at just under probably about 700-800 meters of distance in the climb itself, but it's at a 7% gradient. So it's the first one that's really going to bite, and one should be aware of it because it's a good indication of where you're at in the race.
Yeah, and it's also just for referencing, you've literally just gone through the reserve gate. You've done one little water crossing, and it's past where the old checkpoint used to be, checkpoint 2, hilly, and then you straight onto that, onto this hill where we're at now.
Yeah, so the good news is the previous checkpoint's a little bit further before that, so any food you take in, you might keep down. Whereas in the past, when you came out of this checkpoint at Hilly, your food was sitting in your throat up this climb. So a bit of a positive message there. But then obviously we've got a few more climbs to come en route, and the next one is Pavillons Back.
Yeah.
And Pavillons Back is, the climb distance is 3.3 Ks. And the average gradient 6%. So again, another climb that's going to keep you busy. And what my experience has been that quite a few riders will think that's already the Mac.
There's a very specific point on the top where I normally park and look back to the riders and take some photos. And the guys summiting at the top, they asked, was that the Mac? And I said, nowhere close yet.
And then obviously once we've covered Pavillons Back, we hit the fangs. And there's obviously 2 of them.
Yes.
As in all fangs. And the first one, a little bit shorter, you've got 1.2 kilometers. Average gradient there's 8%.
Yeah.
But I think the next one where you're looking at a 12% gradient on average, a bit shorter.
Yeah.
And again, you have those concrete and brick strips up those climb. Because it is relatively steep, and I think those are the 2 that, a lot of people, no disgrace in walking those climbs.
Yeah.
Especially the second one,
yes.
It is really steep.
And the road surface also, we'll see what it looks like today, but the road surface also generally sometimes is quite deteriorated to find a line to go up there as well.
Exactly, yeah. So, and always remember that you're well over 100 kilometers into the ride now already. So you've spent a few hours in the saddle, and now the climbing starts.
Yeah.
And then the big one, obviously Mac, the one everyone talks about. And depending on where you start the measurement of Mac, but most of it is about 6.5 kilometers long, average gradient of 6%. But as we'll see later, the surface is the tricky part as well.
Yes.
You've got the concrete strips or the lack of concrete strips, the rocks, everything else. So the Mac is the challenge, and then obviously you're riding up to Bergplaats to the next checkpoint at the top that everyone's trying to get to, ideally before the sun goes down. Yeah. But again, no disrespect to anybody that does decide to have a little bit of a walk up there. It's not an indication that you're going that badly, because it is a tough climb.
Yeah.
And then obviously down the other side is the Big Dipper. As you always say, when you go down there in the dark, no one will see you go over the side. and the Big Dipper, gradient, obviously a descent gradient of about 5%, and it's well over 4 kilometers long, the descent. Very nice descent, nice flowing descent, but you do have to pay attention to the drainage gullies that are across the road at an angle.
Yeah.
So that's important as you go down there in the dark, make sure you have really good lights that you can see. And then, as the most appropriate name, I think, the Never Ender.
What's the stats on the Never Ender? Sorry,
the stats on that, you're looking just under 13 kilometers of climbing with an average gradient of 3%. Sounds easy, doesn't sound like much, but you are almost 200 kilometers now
in the race,
into the race. And that's where the crunch comes.
Yes.
So keep something in the tank for Never Ender, because it's not the last climb, but it's definitely one of the most challenging ones mentally. And thank goodness a lot of us ride up there in the dark, so we don't really see.
You can't see the
top.
summit.
You can't see the top.
Yeah.
And then the last two really on the route, we have Mini Mac.
Yeah.
A lot shorter than Mac itself, just over 1 kilometer, but 8% gradient. The last couple of years the road has been graded, so it's been a nice, smoother ride, let's put it that way. Still a hard ride. And then, once you turn towards Jeffreys, you start seeing the lights of Jeffreys Bay. You then turn onto the railway line. And the railway line, as we all know, can be a challenge. Those of us that have ridden the race. And again, we have a climb there. Not really a climb per se, but it is a gradient of 2% over 4 kilometers. And that was named WTF.
Yeah.
Not what everyone thinks it means, but where's the finish?
Yeah.
Because now you want to get to the finish.
Yep. So
that's the profile. Have a look at it. Don't be deceived by it, especially the first 100 kilometers.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just to get back to the Big Dipper comment from Harold, is also that the Big Dipper is one of the main reasons why we will never allow this race to be solo. It's always going to be a team event, and quite literally it is. Those drop-offs on that side is quite scary, and like Vickers also always says, is we need somebody to show us where you went down. So we need you to be in a team.
Let's hope that doesn't happen.
To stick together. Guys, okay, so from my side, this box, I'm going to try and pick it up without losing all the other things. This is our box that you get. So you get 3 of these boxes, and they're marked. There it says checkpoint 3 and your race number on this side. So those are your markings, and you get 3 of these boxes at registration, and they go to the to 3 points. So Zandvlakte, checkpoint 2, that was just down here, just before this climb, which is at roughly just under 100k, about 98 kilometers in the race. Then your second box goes to Smitskrol, which is checkpoint 3 at 123 k's. And then checkpoint 4, which is Bergplaats on top of Mac, and that is at 140 k's. So those are your 3 boxes that you get. Now, a lot of people actually, as novices and rookies doing this race, don't understand why we give those boxes and what they're for. So just to give you a bit of a rundown, obviously our checkpoints, you got quite a bit of food and things on our menu, and we'll run through our menu a bit more at a later stage. But there's lots of sustenance there. Guru is our partner, nutrition partner. There's drinks, there's Coke, there's food, and all of those things. So it's quite a substantial offering at the checkpoints. But we can't cater for everything, so there's always going to be other things that we can't cater for. So I think one of the things that you need to think about, obviously you need to carry some of your own repair kit and things on you all the time, with spare tubes, bombs and that sort of thing. But then also maybe putting in refill stock into your box. You might have already had a few punches, so put in extra bombs. I always, I think most of us ride tubeless these days, but it's always a good idea to have some patch and solution in the box as well. And then a little one, as I was packing this out, Harold just said, people forget, and I forget about these. And this is your valve. like have a spare valve, spare chain links, yeah, just what do you call these things
Tire
again?
levers.
Tire levers. You have a good spare of tire levers for opening your wheel if you need to put in tubes, and that's just basics. I mean, you could go and put in extra chains and extra tubes and things like that, but you need to just think about what you might need. We obviously have mechanics at the checkpoints to help you out as well, but it's always better if you can help yourself quicker and faster, and also you will pick up problems on the route, not in the checkpoint. So refill stock there. Then the other thing that's quite important that people, I don't know if you forget it, but barrier balm from Squirt is a lifesaver. Having that chamois cream or something that can help you sit in the saddle for 230 k's for 24 hours. So I would throw in a pot of these at every single box to re-lube the most important bits, and then lubing of your chain as well with squirts. That's imperative. And these little bottles, you get some of them in your goodie bag when you start, and they're very nice. They just fit into the back of your riding jersey, and they're quick and easy to lube en route, especially if it's a wet year, or our river crossings. We do go through a lot of river crossings as well. Then this is a new product from Squirt. It really works well. It's tire sealant in a little pouch. Really nice on the go to get new tire sealant into your tubeless setup. Right, then...
And I think, sorry Zane, just to interrupt you there, I think one of the big things about the Squirt products, especially the chain lubes, is it's biodegradable. So if it does wash off in the rivers in this wilderness area, it doesn't have huge impact. It obviously has some impact, but not a huge environmental impact.
That's
so that's
very
always
important.
Always a good consideration.
Yeah, all of that's biodegradable. It's really well thought out products, and also thought out how to use it. The application, this pouch, that little valve fits exactly over your tire valve to quickly squirt it into your wheel. It really works well as a product. Then nutrition. So we'll go through the menu, but it's always good to have some extra gels of your own, or whatever you favor to have with you, and to refill. You won't be able to carry in your cycling pockets all the gear, all the food and all the gear you need. So to have refill things, and then also to be able to put in your own drink mix into your bottles at these checkpoints where the crates are. Then I think the most important thing is clothing and gear, because you're going to start at 10 o'clock in the morning. It's going to be nice and hot all the way to this point, basically, or hot, warm. We've had different weathers over this course of this event, so a lot of us know about the very cold we've had in the past and the very warm we've had in the past. So it's about figuring that out, looking at the weather predictions, and then planning and packing your crate according to what the race is going to deliver. And so things like when it starts getting colder and darker, winter gloves. Chivita makes very nice winter gloves that can go into your box. You wouldn't necessarily, unless it's a really cold morning, start with these, but you would be able to put them into your box. Then, depending on weather conditions, again, you need to think about a proper rain jacket. This is a really good rain jacket from Chivita as well, and we'll run through a bit more specs on this in a later episode of what the clothing actually, the specs and that is. And then also thinking of warm tops like this. This is very nice with a little bit of down in the front and a breathable material on the back, and your pockets. It's a really nice jacket this is really good for thinking about the Big Dipper. If you put this into your Bergplaats check box, I know in the early days I used to always see people put in newspapers into their box, so that they can put a piece of newspaper in front of them for the downhill chill, and then they could easily dispose of that at the next checkpoint.
Yeah, what I was going to say there is, I've seen, because you generally get to Bergplaats when it starts getting dark or just after that, and you're now going down the longest downhill, you want to stay warm. You don't want to, and guys are changing their undershirts
Yes.
to have dry undershirts so that it's not wet when you're going downhill. And obviously the appropriate clothing will do the trick
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, and the whole idea with these clothing from Chivita as well, with the down in the front, is just to be able to zip open, zip close in those different areas as you go through. And also when you ride at night, it's quite amazing to feel those pockets. You get those warm pockets
of air,
that you ride through, and then all of a sudden you get those very cold pockets as well as that you ride through. Then an important element of these sort of things is if you're a team of 4, the box stays the same size. If you're a team of 3, it stays the same size, and if you're a team of 2, it stays the same size. So there's a bit of team dynamics and planning with that as well. So a team of 2, you've got the advantage of having more space in your box, but you've got the disadvantage that you're just 2 guys out on the route. If you're 4 guys, you've got more people to work with and help you and pull and tow and assist with, but you've got less space in your box. So that's what you need to think about. And it's also about planning your teammates' equipment in this box. And in the past, I've always recommended Ziploc bags, but these bags that you actually get your Chivita gear in is really good to use. It's a little zip bag, and what's nice about it is also a compostable bag, and just sliding each team member and just taking a permanent marker, marking on Joe or Zane or Harold on it, and putting your stuff in there when you get there. And you think it's something simple. Why would we want to do that? It's in a small enough box. We can just find our own stuff as we go. But at 140 k's, 1 a.m. in the morning, it's a different story to try and find your stuff. So it's easy. And it's always about reducing the admin on a race. Is you want to think about all these little steps to reduce your admin when you get to a checkpoint. You pull out, you take what you need, and you put it back, and you can get your rest of your things at your checkpoint and move out, and not spend too much time in the checkpoint faffing around finding gear and so on. Then I think the important thing that we didn't discuss, Harold just spoke about lights as well, and that sort of thing, is I always say rather start with at least a headlamp on your helmet or with you, because you never know what happens. Something might catch you out, and we're back at the 10 o'clock start, so the sunset will be earlier in the race than the last 2 years. But then spare batteries for your lights can go into your boxes, and maybe one spare light into the box that you could share between the team if somebody's light breaks or there's a problem, and then also to figure out where you're going to be at sunset, and to put your lights and your batteries, your heavy things into there to put them onto the race. Obviously Extreme Lights is our partner, and they make it really easy with good quality lights and good batteries. That I think the latest 6,500 amp hour batteries you won't need another battery. You'll ride the whole race through with that one battery. I think in the early days there was a lot of debate about what lights to use, and where will you change batteries, because the batteries didn't last.
My one tip would be for every rider to make sure, although you think I'm going to reach Bergplaats before it gets dark, mechanicals happen. I've come across riders en route trying to navigate with a mobile phone torch battery. It doesn't work on these downhills, so just have a backup. And maybe even my personal tip is to start with a light on your bike
at least
from the beginning, so you know that you've got that covered, and then you maybe have a backup light in one of the boxes.
Yeah, I think it's a really good practice with lights. It doesn't weigh that much, and then also you've already figured out your handlebar. You figured out where your number mounts, where your GPS unit mounts, and where your light mounts. You've already figured that out while you were at home or at your accommodation, and it's not a faff in mid-race to put it on and that sort of thing. It's little things like that will add value to your race experience, that will make it a lot easier. And I think that that's basically it that I wanted to also just while we're going through a bit of kit and things that's going into, it's imperative that you also look at our website about our compulsory gear, and that you have your compulsory gear with you, and thinking about how you're going to carry everything, how you're going to carry enough water, how you're going to carry the gear. You need to have a waterproof jacket with you. You need to have a space blanket with you. You really actually do need to have a whistle with you as well. And those things are those are compulsory items that we put there. We don't check them, but it's important, and I think we can reference to last year where it actually became really important to have those items. So think about that, and think about how you're going to plan your ride. Are you going to ride with a camelback? Can your bike take 2 water bottles? Can you take a water bottle with spares in the water bottle and on the back? Or just plan all those little things about your bike setup and your personal setup. How are you gonna manage all of those things?
And try it out in training well before the event.
This is important. If you never train with a little bladder camelback on your back, and then all of a sudden you set off on a 230k ride with an extra 2-liter weight on your back, it doesn't feel like much, but after
Your shoulders will know about it.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. I think that's episode 4 done on Cramp Hill in the beautiful Baviaanskloof. Harold and I are waiting for the sun to come over so that we can warm up a bit. But I trust that Vickers is somewhere lurking, hopefully making us some nice coffee to enjoy. Thanks for spending some time with us this morning, and we're about to head further that way into the Baviaanskloof to bring you more episodes of this Trans-Baviaans podcast show.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Zane.
Thanks, Harold. Cheers, guys.